Welcome back to our Extra AI podcast series. And today we have an interesting conversation where we talk about another startup where data takes some shape, or the name of the firm is Shaip as well. And I have the co founder and CEO of Shaip with us, Mr. Hardik Parikh. Welcome on board, Hardik. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you are connected to AI, or specifically any of the topics around AI?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Raghu, for having me on this podcast. And to all the listeners, I'm excited to be on this podcast. It seems very exciting. I'm always very happy to talk about AI and its impact. I like to explain to my parents, my kids, so all the age group, that how AI is affecting them in their language. And hopefully, I can add some value explaining to your viewers today as well that how we are working in this AI field and how AI affects the world in general today. About my background, Raghu, I'm a the term is technopreneur. So I'm a technologist by heart. I have my education in technology. I'm a computer engineer by education. Then I started my first venture about 15 years ago in compliance training space, and
Mhm.
I grew that business to a substantial level, and then handed it over to a team to run that business as I saw this opportunity in healthcare, where
Mhm.
there was a need of a lot of data solutions, data services, and that is where the first time I got introduced to data in general. This is back in 2010 when AI, machine learning were not the keywords or the buzzwords back then. So I started there, and I have grown from there and started Shape about 4.5 years ago, early 2019, with one of my co-founders in the other company in healthcare as well, because we realized that this was a big gap, and we can help companies at large on a much larger scale solve their AI and machine learning needs the way we were solving for healthcare in our previous venture. So I'm a technologist at heart, thrown into entrepreneurship, but
Mhm.
my passion is solving real world problems using technology. So that's a little bit about me. I have two kids, 9 and 4. I love spending time with them, taking them to the parks, playing with them different games, and just love to learn how they are learning and implementing AI in their daily life. Even my 4-year-old daughter on a daily basis is using applications which has AI embedded into it, which he doesn't know. So this generation is growing up with a lot of AI in them, and I just love learning more about that.
Great. I think that's a great introduction, Hardik. I like the way you have spun it around, starting with being a technopreneur, the technologist plus an entrepreneur, and with your background from coming from the healthcare and the field around data and how data is realistically used in healthcare, and about how your journey with Shape is taking up. I also like the aspect that how the kids are now growing with AI. Even some of the, I think a few, I think maybe a few years back or a few decades back, even growing up with a gadget was tough enough, but now we are come very far fetched, and it's not even gadgets, but I think kids are now the current gen kids are going to be growing up with AI embedded in a lot of applications.
Yep, yep.
So with that, I that takes me into a very interesting teaser question that I try to put for her guests. Any personal or a professional experience that you would like to share about how AI is impacting nowadays uh, compared to the past? Because we inherently we do not even know that we have been using, but now that AI has become a buzzword, it's all around, and people now starting to correlate with that. Any such example or experience you would like to share? And
Sure.
maybe you could also add some additional upcoming AI advancements into the mix.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think one example that I actually recently saw with one of my friends and even myself, which is kind of a combination of both personal and professional and the enterprise level companies that we are helping, is kind of how the whole car insurance companies have come along. So all of
Mm-hmm.
them typically use State Farm, Progressive, Geico, some of those companies. Back in the day, or even as early as a few years ago, if you bumped up a car or there was an accident, there would be this adjuster who would come at your home after a few days. He would take a walk around. He would look at the car. He would see that, hey, there is this damage in the right wheel or something like that, and then they would send all that report back to the company. After a few days, after a few follow-ups, they'll tell you, hey, this is how your insurance works, this is what the damage we estimated it to be, and you can go to this company, get it fixed, this garage, and get it fixed, and this is what will pay you. This whole process would take anywhere from weeks to months, and it
Mm-hmm.
would be broken. Where we were also helping one of these similar companies, and I saw this, that now it is impacting our real life, is also how AI has come into picture into this. So now if you are in such an accident or something like that happens, nobody comes at your home. They just give you an
Mm-hmm.
app. You take a video, walk around that your car, highlighting the areas that were damaged, send that video back to them within minutes, if not even days, forget hours, within minutes. They
Mm-hmm.
tell you that this is the impact of the damage, these are the three places that you can go to, this is how the insurance will repay you, will take care of everything, and you are up and running. And if you need a rental car in that replacement, they'll send you right away there as well. So I see that this example I'm sharing because I see that how this impacts everyday life for
Right.
everyone, for a consumer, but also professionally, because we were able to collect data, annotate the data for lots of such cars across the country and provide it to them. They could use that data and build the machine learning and AI models and actually help the consumers at the end do that. So I see that as a very interesting intervention of from my professional life on providing this data and this services to these companies, and how it turned into a product and started impacting real life with me, some of my friends, and everybody around me. So that has been an interesting journey for me in terms of how it is impacting on a daily basis.
Beautiful. I think that's a great example that you have brought, Hardik, because I very much attune to this example that you have provided. Like in the past, like when you have been discussing or when you have been talking with these insurance firms, this process is to be a longer, but nowadays it's very simpler and very fast. And beautiful things are happening now, and beautiful applications of AI, like the example that you have quoted. Any upcoming specific AI advancements in the current world you or your company is mainly looking into that might impact?
So since last November, I think the whole world is talking about generative AI, LLM.
Right.
Now that's where the world has moved to. What OpenAI has done. This work has been happening since several years, but it was all in the research community. What OpenAI and ChatGPT did was bring that research work to the mainstream. And now everybody, as I said earlier, my 9-year-old goes to ChatGPT to ask questions. So everybody is now started to use it, have started using ChatGPT, OpenAI, and that is one area that is very very interesting, and a lot of advancement, a lot of work is happening in that area, generative AI LLM space, and it is impacting each and every business. So it's not just pinpointing that hey, LLM is just helping the consumers to get your everyday answers, but even the enterprises, they are
Mm-hmm.
using it in many different ways too, from very simple ways of drafting your emails to drafting like job postings or taking care of your website text, to very complex things of generating codes, to verifying the code if this is the most optimized software code that is written. In healthcare, it is helping generating summarization of patients. It's impacting each and every industry in various ways. That's one area that we are super excited about, and there are just a handful of LLMs today because it requires lots of
Right.
investment. and millions of dollars again to keep them running. It requires so
Mm-hmm.
many GPUs to keep them running. So there are just a handful of companies doing that, but the applications on top of it are numerous. It's the sky is the limit. I think of
Right.
this as what Apple did about 15 years ago, opening up their app store. So Apple
Mm-hmm.
built this proprietary technology, and then they opened up it to the world that, hey, build any app on top of that. And now, and we have seen in the last 15 years how the app store has evolved and has just exploded. I see that happening in the next decade with LLM. A lot of companies building specific applications for either enterprises or consumers on top of these LLMs, and helping us ease some of our tasks in our daily life.
Beautiful. I like the analogy that you made with the Apple's iPhone, right? Like, because this is where once making the technology available is one thing, but on top of that, how the applications can be built, because that is where the bigger play is involved, and how the ecosystem around these applications will evolve. That's going to be interesting to watch, and I believe there's a lot more to come. So now I know we have briefly touched based on this topic about the new innovations that are going to be interesting. Uh, but before getting there, I would like to take one step back and see. I want to take your perspective on how do you see AI transforming enterprises or consumer businesses before even getting into these newer technologies or AI innovations. And you might be seeing that a lot when you have been working with your customers. Any
Yeah.
highlights or
So
perspectives?
every business will be affected. The great thing about where I am in my role is I'm seeing a new use case, a new company coming up every day and saying that, hey, this is the way I want to transform this business, whether it's enterprise business or consumer business. So every single business is affected by AI today. I gave you an example of insurance companies earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare, we'll talk a lot more about in some of the upcoming questions as well. But I can think of every other industry. Technology companies are coming up with lot many solutions to help consumers, whether it's direct call centers conversations, whether it's contact center. We talked about insurance, automotive vehicles. We have been having this autonomous vehicle movement since a long time, but AI and the new technologies have pushed this further, so that now we can see a lot more autonomous vehicles coming into picture as well. Consumer business, we talked about open AI, chat GPT has completely transformed that industry, and everybody has started using that. um, a few years ago, the Google Homes, the Amazon Alexas were transforming that by entering into our homes and providing technology so that we can interact with them, ask questions, and get our daily updates on that. So all of these different areas I'm seeing affecting both the consumer and the enterprise business in several different ways. Where Shape is positioned is actually seeing so many different areas where the companies are looking to implement and infuse AI. The
Mm-hmm.
mindset has changed. So everybody's trying to see, how can I do this job in a better way, in an efficient way, using AI, machine learning, so it can start giving me predictive analysis. The statistical and the predictive analysis models have been there since a long time,
Right.
but people have now started looking at it from a perspective how I can apply it to my specific industry and some of the traditional industries too. I'll give you an example in enterprise world as such. The agriculture industry. uh,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would ever think that, hey, how can agriculture be transformed by AI? But we are seeing use cases where companies are building models where they are going to run a drone over an entire farmland, and they can identify what specific areas have more weeds, more crops that are getting damaged, so they can focus on that areas and put fertilizers in there. They're also checking the soil composition and other areas using AI,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing that, hey, how this will be most effective for growing a certain amount of crop in this area. So even traditional industries like agriculture are seeing a lot of use cases being implemented using AI. and the same goes for every other enterprises. It's the mindset of the people now that how can I better
Right.
improve this specific area.
Right. But any particular, I know, yeah, you talked a lot about the different industries getting affected and how AI can transform these industries. Now, coming to the standpoint of your company, what are there any specific AI innovations or the current innovations that you are uh, looking more for impact, or how do you uh, uh, maybe think about it and how it can shape the customers that you're working with, or at a higher level, how can that even what are some of these technologies that might be very much interesting for you, some of these innovations?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So one of the innovations that I'm very excited about within our company and in general as well is about the overall doctor-patient healthcare experience.
Hmm.
So when we go to a physician, visit a physician in the physician examination room, I have experienced this many times, and so has a lot of other people I've talked to. Is a lot of time the physicians just are spending time on the computer typing the information about the patient rather than spending one-on-one time with the patient. Uh,
Okay.
I know for a fact that the physician don't want to do that. They want to spend more quality time with the patient. The patient is not having a great experience because they are talking to literally somebody who is typing on a computer.
Hmm.
uh, but the reason that experience is broken is because after the EMRs came into play about 10 to 12 years ago, the doctor had to document everything that they were seeing for the patient. Now, if they see the patient and then they document at the end of the day after seeing, let's say, 25 patients, they would have forgotten half of the things, or they would be spending extra time doing just the documentation. So there were many solutions that were suggested in the last 10 years. There was a scribing solution, that there is an assistant coming in and doing the scribing on behalf of the physician. There was an assistant who would come in, the nurse would do the job. There were a lot of shortcuts being applied to that. But the last year or so has, because of all these innovations and technology now being available, where specifically Shape is also very excited and doing these innovations, is making this entire experience very seamless for the
Hmm.
patient and the physicians. So what we are trying to do is have technology in the examination room, which is hidden, which is there, but it is recording the patient and the doctor conversation with all the HIPAA rules and regulations and guidelines in place. And once that recording is done, understanding that what was the physician part of it, what was the patient part of the conversation, summarize that entire conversation, take out the snippets which are the key information, that is, the patient came in for this kind of a problem, this was the diagnosis, this is the procedure recommended, this is the medication, these are the next steps. So put all that in perspective, and then automatically put it into the EMR system. So then the follow up process of the coding, the billing, the insurance companies is taken care of. So that kind of completely transforms the patient and the doctor experience, where
Hmm.
now the patient is spending a lot more time with the physician is spending a lot more time with the patient, trying to understand what's going on, and they can spend more time understanding what are the other socio-economic factors
Right.
that may be affecting this as well. So those kind of technologies, putting it into the examination room into the hospitals, is where Shape, and I'm personally very excited about those kind of innovations will transform the healthcare as we see it.
Beautiful. I Yeah, I like the aspect of taking a real time, very valid example when we talk about this patient and doctor relationship. Obviously, me myself, I think many times when you've been there, we see that the doctor or the practitioner, nurse practitioner, they kind of try to take a lot of notes, and we feel that, hey, am I missing something? Is the doctor missing something when we talk? But this is a great gap that you could address uh, and leverage the AI innovations in the right way. But what are the challenges that you see to implement technology here? I know there will be some typical challenges, right? Like will be faced, whether it is on the maybe this example or maybe another example where customers are facing the challenges and then they want to implement this particular technology. But what do you see? Uh, there will be some kind of a what do you call friction before getting there. So
Yeah.
how do you see these challenges? What kind of challenges do you see, and how do you see that can be addressed?
Yeah, yeah. So two primary challenges we see is one is obviously the regulatory challenges.
Hmm.
Second is we are dealing here with very sensitive patient data.
Right,
So
right.
data handling is also another challenge. So these are the two challenges that we primarily see in this. Third one will also come later on is more about the implementation and the adoption of the technology. But we have to overcome first the regulatory and the data management, the data handling challenges over here as well. A lot of time, the hospital system are not comfortable putting such kind of devices into their examination rooms, into their premises. So we have to overcome those challenges, understanding, explaining that how secure, safe that is. We have to come up with new innovative technologies. So the data and everything that we are deploying is completely secured into their premise, into their cloud or any infrastructure they're using. It runs most of the time because you don't want to have a broken experience. So it is an
Hmm.
air gap solution. So it runs without the internet as well as needed. So those kind of challenges will also come as we keep along. But to challenge the regulatory as well as the patient data handling challenge, it's more about having that hand holding, having that trust being formed after showing multiple times that, hey, the data is getting de identified. We are not going to use the real world patient names over here. Everything, the technology is there where you can de identify up to 99% of the data, and for everything else, you can use human in the loop. So it's just building that trust and ensuring that the data is secure and the regulatory aspects don't come into picture is what we need to overcome, along with building those technologies and making sure it works all the time.
Right. So great. I think you great that you brought up this point of trust being one of the key factors, right? And because you have a lot of this data that is going to be available, whether it is from the practices standpoint, regulatory practices standpoint, or whether it is from the patient data standpoint. But how do you see these data sets? Because you will, I know we're talking about the medical field, but I think maybe you're also talking briefly about the computer vision, where you could also kind of grasp all this data or scan this data. How do you see now you have to data is going to be the key here. Obviously, you have talked about these practices, how you have to handle that, and also you're talking about how this uh, patient data or in other aspects. How do you see these data sets? Handling the data sets will impact the enterprises and the customers they use these data sets. And how do you see uh, what is Shaip's role here?
Right. So Shape's role as a custodian is ensuring that we are following all the regulations that are in place. The government is becoming very active now. Europe
Mhm.
always set the standards in being a leader in this field with the GDPR and several other other regulations that they have put into place with a very clear guideline and framework of how the data should be handled, how consent should be handled with multiple people who are giving consent to the data to be used or not used in different ways. California has passed its own GDPR kind of regulations around the data privacy and consent as well. And the US government is coming along as well. I think recently all the AI leaders went in front of Congress and presented their framework on how the data should be used, consumed with the consent and everything in place. So Shape's role over here, I see, is more of a custodian as well as an educator to
Mm-hmm.
help understand the enterprises and general consumers that your data is being de-identified with all the different levels so that it cannot come back to you, but it is used more so that the AI can be improved better. There is no biasness in AI, and it is very important to have that diverse set of data in place to remove that biasness from the data, have that diversity in the data, and also making sure that as custodians of this data or as regulators of this data, we are absolutely making sure that we are following all the guidelines, regulations, we have all the right certifications and everything in place, which brings confidence not just to the enterprise consumers that the enterprise customers who are using us, but also to the consumers who may be giving consent to use that data as well. So it's kind of an ecosystem of the enterprises, the end consumers, and the companies like Shape, all of us working hand in hand together with the common regulations, guidelines being created by the governments, with the frameworks used by them. So all of us follow those and providing trust to each other.
Beautiful. So this takes us into the aspects of, I know there is this Congress hearing, I think today, I think we have all these leaders as of today, September the 13th. We have the whole set of AI leaders there presenting how you can build responsible AI or ethical AI and make it much more, build better AI services.
Right, right.
So now I want to get into, before we get into the example, obviously I would like to, if you can fine tune this with an example. You don't need to name the name of the customers, but I think an example of how you can tie it up together. But maybe before I talk about the example, could you briefly explain how how do you shape the data with the different AI services that you have built, whether it is for text or speech or image or video? I know you have the process of from data collection to transcription to labeling and then data de-identification. Do you want to explain this process in the context of an example so that we can the audience can understand how Shape is helping in this process?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So let's start with how the overall machine learning or AI process works, and then I'll take an example of where Shape
Mhm.
comes in picture. So overall, to build a machine learning or AI model, uh, the key ingredient here is the right amount of correct data, which is the label data, annotated data, without any biasness and with the diversity as is needed to be inserted into the machine learning models in the right format. So then you can build those machine learning models and work on that. So
Mhm.
data is the key. It's liquid gold here that goes into the machine learning models, and there is so many advancements in machine learning models now that you can do the fine tuning, you can adjust the hyperparameters, you can give the right temperature while you are giving the data to the LLMs so that you can get the right output. But there is not a lot of advancement on the data itself. That was one of the challenges we faced in our previous venture as well, where we needed to clean a lot of data to build our clinical machine learning models. And
Mhm.
we realized that that's not the only problem we faced. It's been faced by all the enterprise companies out there. And that's where we started Shape, to help all these companies out there with their data problems. On an average, 75 to 80% of the time a machine learning engineer or data scientist spends is on just getting the right data in, rather than training the models. They are spending about 80% of time in finding the right data, prepping the data, cleaning the data, making it ready so it can be inserted into this.
Mhm.
So that is where we bring a lot of value in there. So to give an example, and again, I'll jump to the healthcare example, because that's where our roots are, where we started. We do a lot more other things in speech and other areas as well, but I'll talk about the healthcare example. So there is one customer who was working on a use case of detecting lung neoplasms and other kind of diseases from X-ray images. So
Mhm.
they wanted to build those machine learning models, and they were using some open source data sets available out there, just to build their models. It was not giving them the right results. So they approached Shape and said that, hey, can you help? Because to detect and help radiologists from the millions of data sets that they may be encountering, which patient has this specific kind of a tumorous growth coming up, using machine learning or AI, how can we do that? So where what Shape did was understand that use case, understand the problem. We started collecting the data from our internal sources, our partners, and providing them the right X-ray images with the diversity bias, and not having the biasness in them, and provided that data to them so that they can start looking at that data. Once we had the right data set, the cohort of patients that we had identified available to us, we started looking at that data on our platform and annotating the areas where within the lungs there were some growth of
Mhm.
cancer tumor cells, and the areas where there were not a growth. So we started labeling that, we started annotating that, we converted that into the appropriate format that they needed, and then they could put that data into their machine learning models and accurately predict I believe they were at about 85% accuracy, to predict whether a new x-ray coming in for a patient, whether this patient would have those cancerous growth or not. So that
Mhm.
helped the end customer, which was the radiologist in this case, already flag some of the x-rays that are coming to them, so then they would use just their expert skills and say, yeah, this is good to go, not good to go. So that is how the whole process typically works, where we understand the use case, we find the right cohort of patient data, we do the annotation, all of this on our platform, on our Shape Cloud platform, and then deliver the right data. And then on an ongoing basis, we keep adding more data, because we may have covered a certain ethnicity, we may not have covered another
Mhm.
ethnicity. So we add that data. We may have covered one geography, not the other one. So we keep adding data to that, so that it's an iterative process, and they are able to build the best machine learning model possible to help the radiologist in that case.
Beautiful. So in this scenario, I think you might also be working with some external vendors as well when you work with these different data sets or collecting the data. Let me take this question a bit further. I want to now understand. I know you mentioned as well that 85% of this data or the results might be better 85% of the time. I know when we talk about predictions and machine learning, I think there is always this learning factor to improvise.
Mhm.
And now that you're talking about this very critical field, and of course, you guys are helping in the medical healthcare or the medical services is very, uh, very much useful and really helps the communities a lot. But how do you evaluate the effectiveness of these data services that you are using, right? These AI data services. I know things are improving, but any particular measures or regulations or guidelines that you follow to make sure that the effectiveness is, you can evaluate the effectiveness and make it much better.
That's a great point, Raghu, because this is very important in terms of understanding the effectiveness of the data as well. And I'll start with a couple of examples, because
Right.
what has happened in the past, about just a few years ago, when we are not using the right data sets, when we are not measuring the effectiveness, how it can negatively impact. There were a couple of examples, and you can find it online, uh, where there was this recruitment system in place, which would have like tons of, I would not name the company, where they would get like thousands of resumes coming into their system for certain jobs, and the automated system would do the initial screening before giving it to the right team members to see if this candidate was the right candidate for this job. What they realized in this recruitment system was a vast majority of the technical jobs, they were automatically rejecting women's resumes.
Hmm.
So they would just get male resumes for technical jobs. because historically that has been the case. It was a dominated industry by male candidates in terms of this. But that was a broken system because the
Right.
AI was built on faulty data, and that is the impact it can have if we don't measure the effectiveness, the diversity, and the fairness of this data. uh, I think there was another similar example where within healthcare, in US healthcare, it grossly discriminated against the African American black patients. The
Mhm.
kind of reimbursements they should be getting and the kind of treatment they should be getting. There was an AI system built to check what kind of treatment in what areas should be given, but their data was not taken into consideration by building this AI model, and it gave disastrous results. So looking at all these learnings from the past, it becomes very important that we measure the effectiveness of the data. The effectiveness of data is essentially starts at the very initial stage of defining what kind of model I'm trying to build and what kind of data will I need to do, keeping in mind that I need to have the fairness, unbiasedness, and the diversity of the data in place. So when you have all these three aspects in play, and then you are putting your initial data guidelines into picture, that hey, I want to make sure that I'm covering this geography adequately, and it is representative of the entire US population, or whatever geography I'm working with. That is the step one of making sure that this data is effective or not.
Beautiful. I think I like the aspect of covering these three aspects when you're effectively measuring uh, what kind of data that you have and how you're building this data. So that takes into account that, hey, when I'm building, you're even making sure that the incentives, the right incentives are in place and then with this aspect so that you feed in or you put in the right incentives, the right aspects, and then you kind of get better effectiveness of the data that you have.
Absolutely. Yep.
So now I think it comes to the most interesting question of the podcast. This is where I call it the $1 million question or the $1 billion question. How do you, I know the market is crowded out there, right? Like there are a lot of tools, a lot of solutions, a lot of services out there. How does Shape differentiate from the competition?
Yes, yes. Now that's a great question. I get asked that almost on a daily basis,
Right.
and I can give you three reasons why Shape differentiate and how we are different from our competition. So the reason number one is we were not born specifically to uh, provide tools and data and to do this work. This was kind of a byproduct of what we had been doing in the past already. So we have been
Mm.
on the other side of the fence
Right.
already. We have been building our own machine learning models in healthcare, and we encountered this problem that hey, how important is the data? Because if you infuse the wrong data into your models, it's going to give faulty results. It's an old adage: garbage in, garbage out. So how, we had been on the other side of the fence, so we understand and we have internalized this problem on our own, which 95% of our competition haven't. They have just started, that they saw the need and they started there. So we have been a natural evolution from there, that we understood this problem, we understood the value of the data, we understood the value of annotation of the data, and we have built our own machine learning model. So we bring a lot of that expertise into picture as well. We have a lot of machine learning data scientist engineers on our team. So that is where Shape was born, and we differentiate from others. The second thing is we are not jack of all trades. We don't do everything.
Right.
We have identified the areas that we are really strong into: healthcare, speech AI, and data collection in
Mhm.
computer vision. So we have identified those areas that we are really strong into, and we just focus on those areas, and we say no to some of the other things that are not in our wheelhouse. And in healthcare, because we have been doing this for about 17, 18 years, we have built a very strong hold, a very strong partner ecosystem, and a network where we can go in and solve any of those use cases. The same goes for speech data. We have a lot of patents already approved for us or in a patent pending, that we have done in both healthcare and speech data, which not a lot of competition can claim to do. So that's the second thing that I talk about when this. And the third thing is, we are just not stopping at providing the data or providing the annotation services. We are now providing full solutions. So we have
Okay.
built our own machine learning models, our own machine learning solutions, which we are providing to our customers. So the customers come to us and say that we're trying to do this, but we need data for that. We will provide them the whole solution that, hey, why are you just worrying about the data piece? Here is a full solution. You can use that solution as a whole. So not a lot of other companies do that. So all these three ways we differentiate from our competition.
Beautiful. I like the aspect of that you brought up, that you're born out of the need and you're predominantly focusing on some of the niche areas, and then how you build on top of that. That's amazing. It was great chatting with you. Before we close the podcast, any key takeaways that you would like to provide to our audience, and maybe if the audience would like to know more about Shaip, where can they go and find information? Any few things that you would like to share?
Absolutely. I think in general, as I've said, as an evangelist for AI and machine learning, I would like to say to the audience that, hey, AI is here to stay. But like any other tool, it will improve, it will augment, it will remove some of the tasks that we do, whether it is within the enterprise companies or within the consumers. It is not here to replace humans like some fiction Hollywood movies and other things that we see on the news says that it's not going to replace everything that we do. It will augment everything that we do, and it will make our job better and easier. It will definitely make some jobs irrelevant,
Mhm.
that were mundane tasks, repetitive tasks. Some of the other things that were also some require little bit of cognitive skills will become irrelevant. But apart from that, a lot more new jobs will open up, which will replace these jobs. So we hear a lot of these negativity around AI that, hey, it's going to replace jobs, it's going to take over the world. It's not going to happen, at least in our lifetime. There will be new jobs that will be opening up, and change is the only constant. So several years ago, there were another revolutions where people were worried about jobs. This is the new revolution that is happening in AI. It's going to create a lot more new jobs than replacing the previous jobs. So my recommendation to the audience, and my final takeaway is, embrace AI, as it's going to help you in your day-to-day jobs. It's only going to be a friend and ally. And think of ways how we can use it in whatever way we are, whatever things that we are doing on a daily basis, and improve AI so it can keep helping us and the next generations that come.
Beautiful. That was an amazing
And to learn more about Shape, just go to our website, shape.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Raghu can send the LinkedIn links or connect with me, and I'll be happy to help in any form or way I can.
Beautiful, Hardik. I'll provide all that information for our audience. And thanks for your time in sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and also talking about Shaip.
Thank you so much, Raghu. You have a good one.